Parenting in the 21st century is ever evolving, and while you balance work, kids, and your sanity, it's easy to feel discouraged. Welcome to the Super Parent Syndrome with your host, Dr. Nick Fanning.
Hey, Super Parent Nation. Sorry for the small delay that we've had since between episodes. I've been actually editing some content and trying to work ahead and get some good content for you guys. And so anyway, the reason why today's podcast is special is that I interviewed a Miss Heather Gill, who has an amazing message to share. I've been actually taking a few classes with her for Circle Security, and unfortunately, I was trying a new way of recording things through this basically app on my phone, just to kind of show her how easy it is to do podcasts. Well, I think in my own way, as I was trying to show her how easy it could be, I was showing her also how it can just get messed up. And so we're missing a few parts from the podcast at the very beginning and then also at the very end. And so as you listen, you'll totally understand that there's still an amazing amount of content. I do encourage you to check out our Facebook page. She'll mention it in the podcast. It is called Enough. So make sure you check that out. And without further delay, here is my interview with Heather Gill.
I'm most excited about them. They've been the ones that have driven me from day one to seek to be a better parent.
Awesome.
So that's my main job. I do the pyramid model for Nebraska and help us figure out what the needs are that kids are trying to tell us. So that's a big part of what I'm doing. I have a new Facebook page. Okay. It's called Enough.
Oh, so nice. I like that.
I encourage you to check that out.
Well, tell me, what do you mean by enough?
Well, I have been, this has been a journey I've been on for a very long time, and I think we need to get to the point of realizing that we're enough. That's our starting point in growth and in life and in our families and in our parenting. If we can get to that point of realizing that we are enough, then we can be more free to make the changes that we want to make in our lives and in our family.
Oh, man, that sounds amazing, because I know, man, I beat myself up at times. I'm like, oh man, I'm the world's worst dad because my kids are right because they call me that because I'm mean, or oh man, or you just kind of second guess everything you do,
right?
And mom guilt, dad guilt,
right? Yeah. And what do you do when that's driving you? How do you tend to respond when shame is your driver?
Oh man. Well, yeah. So you're going to either one, own it and let it just drive you down, or else you're going to push it onto the kids, and it's an unending cycle then.
Yeah, it is an unending cycle. Yeah, it's painful. Shame is different than guilt, and so that's something, I guess, that I learned through Circle of Security Parenting was that shame is something that we start feeling at a young age, and it's something that we're not really aware of, and so we don't know how to support our kids with shame because we don't deal with shame very well. So it's hard to support our kids with shame if we don't even know what it is or what it looks like. So the difference between shame and guilt is I did something wrong. I need to fix it. I need to move on. Shame is there's something wrong with me. And shame is a real place of vulnerability and fear. And we tend to either lash out or work harder or get on the fight, or we shut down. Those tend to be those two responses of shame.
Honestly, I know that I've done them, and I know my wife has done that, and I had no idea what was going on, but man, when you're saying these things, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and it's something I think that drives the thing that's really brought it to home was Circle of Security, and going through this with families that have been so open and honest and talking with me about how they feel and what it's like to try and learn to parent when they haven't had examples that they want to follow. Right. And then the other thing is watching kids with challenging behavior. And the correlation between feeling shame, like we're not worthy, and challenging behavior, and seeing those differences. So a couple things that I've been talking about in every class that I've been teaching is that there are basic, like if we think of this life like a journey, that's how I think about it. And for me, that started 26 years ago, and I have been searching how to be better at what I'm doing since that moment. And if we think about that, you think about a map.
Right.
We don't really read maps anymore.
We got GPS.
Yeah, and it tells us where to go and how to do it. Wouldn't that be nice in life? Like, upload this destination for me. That'd be awesome. But we have to have skills to read maps, and one of those skills is we have to know what the map keys mean.
Okay.
So I've been thinking a lot about these certain keys to help us in our journey, to get from where we are to where we want to be. And you know how the first thing on a map, when you go to the mall, maybe you don't go to the mall, but if you go to the mall and it has those big kiosks, and it says,
the directory.
Yeah, and it says you are here.
Uh-huh.
That, we have to know that first.
I love this.
We have to know that right here is where we are, this is where we need to be, and we're enough. We're right where we need to be, and we're enough.
Okay. Well, what about those that really don't feel like they're anywhere close to where they need to be?
Exactly.
Okay.
But in order to get to where we think we need to be,
right,
we have to be okay with where we are.
Oh, okay.
So something that
because worrying about and beating yourself up isn't going to change where you're at.
It isn't. And so.
But man, that's so easy to do. I'm sorry to interrupt, but man.
Yeah. No, I'm a driven person.
Okay.
I want to be better than I am. But something that I'm learning is if we can be engaged with our kids, engaged with our spouse, engaged with our people around us, that we can move forward then. So where you made a big life change, what was happening during that time that made it possible for you to move forward?
I just got really crystal clear on what my priorities or values were.
Okay.
And then it just straightened things out.
So your values.
Yeah.
So how did you get crystal clear on where your values were? What was this?
Just had to say it out loud a couple times and really own the fact that things the way were.
Yes, that's it. That's okay. Exactly it. So that's enough.
Okay.
When we get to the point where we're okay and we accept the truth of here's where I am, this is my actual values, and my aspirational values is where I want to be. And no amount of positive speaking mantras will get us to where we want to be if we don't accept where we are first.
I like this.
Yeah. So when it comes to kids and families, since that's what your podcast is about, I've thought a lot about moving past that surviving when your kids are little. Because I remember those days like, oh my gosh, you're going to make me insane. And they're being dirt bags and all that. And then wanting to move forward. So I was thinking about what was my trigger for how did I learn to be enough. And it was way back. My kids were little, and I really went through a period of time where shame drove me to work harder, try to be more, do more. I was drove myself into the ground, physically, spiritually, emotionally, and had really severe postpartum depression.
Okay.
And at that point, when I got to that vulnerability, that you are here point, I didn't realize that I could accept that. And move on. Instead, I thought my only options were hurt yourself, hurt your kids, or ruin your husband. Those were the three options.
Okay.
Help wasn't even in my vocabulary at that point. That was like 24 years ago.
Right.
Wasn't even in my vocabulary. Go get help. And I for me, that's a passion for every mom, for every dad, is that if you get to that point where you're like, okay, shame, I can't work harder, I can't do more, I can't be smarter, I can't be better, that's where you need to be, is right there. But then I kind of got that you can survive or you can thrive. And survival is like, okay, fine, I'll have a breakdown and I'll just be okay where I am. That's not what I'm talking about. Right. I'm talking about how do we be enough so that we can accept where we are and then move on. So there were a couple things that helped me move forward. First, I always say this with Circle of Security and anything I'm teaching is we can't shame those that pass this down. This is not to beat up your parents or your ancestors because they were doing what was best for them to do, just like we're doing what's best for us to do. Okay. So I think a lot. I grew up, all my parents homesteaded, and I think shame is a learned behavior. It's something we pass down. We shame. We live in a very shaming culture here,
totally.
And a negative culture and a not enough culture. Right. And so when you have that around you, you learn those behaviors, right? And if we're not aware of them, then we pass them down. But like for my family, shame was not just a defense mechanism, it was the fuel to survive.
Okay.
So if you think about this, so as a girl, one of the things I've thought about, was my trigger for me, was haying a field, cutting down hay, and shame is what drove me to work in that field until it was done. I didn't want to fail.
Right.
I didn't want to let everybody down by not doing that field. And so it drove me to work. It drove me to finish that. It was my fuel. Well, when that becomes a way of life, what does that do to us?
Oh, wow.
Stress-wise.
Yeah, that puts us in that fight and flight and just causes us to burn out.
Yeah. Constantly. And so as our chiropractor, you tell us that all the time.
Right, yep.
You tell us, oh, you got a lot of stress there. And I'm always like, I don't know where it's coming from, but it tends to come from that fuel that fuels us.
Yeah.
And shame does two things. It either shuts us down or, fuels us up.
Mm-hmm.
Think about that when it comes to your family and our ability to accept our spouse, accept our kids. If we can accept ourselves where we are, how can we accept them where they are?
Right. Wow.
So when we're in our family, I'm thinking of my 3 boys, and I have a ton of wish I coulda, all
always.
those, and they get annoyed because I'm always mailing them new books to read. Here, do this because I didn't.
Yeah.
But when we get to that point where everything we see is a sign to us that we're not enough, how do we respond to them?
Wow, that would put us in guilt and shame and fight and flight all the time if we're just constantly reminded.
Yes. So if my kids were normal children and screwed up, right? Because that's what normal people do in order to grow and learn. I, instead of just being their mom and supporting them through it, wanted to change it. Wanted to fix it.
Right, the helicopter lawnmower parent. Yeah.
Right, yeah. Yep. Or, just tell them to suck it up and move on.
Right.
Not accept those feelings. I didn't want to because that was part of my own, I was dealing with my own issues, not that.
Right. And
I think in order for us to be attuned, like you said, we really have to get to that point of being enough.
Right.
Because if we can't accept ourselves in that way, we can't accept them in that way.
Oh, yeah.
So if they're having a meltdown, like you have a little one, and they're having a meltdown, what's our first thought usually?
Suck it up and move on, get over it.
Why are you crying? What's wrong?
What's going on here?
Yeah, there's nothing to cry about. That was my, there's
it's
nothing
a
to cry
hamburger,
about.
eat it.
Yeah, what? Well, it's not a big deal.
Right.
And in fact, we don't need to fix it. We just need to be with them through that. And I'm not saying let your emotions rule you, because I want to have us have strong children, courageous children, children who are willing to work hard, take initiative, and fight through stuff. I don't want, and I'm trying to use the words nicely, but, I don't want us to have weak-willed kids.
Right.
I'm not into that. But what I do want is for us to pass on an acceptance of who they are as enough. And it's valuable, and it's important and necessary. And I didn't pass that at first. I was always into, we're going to do more, we're going to be better, we're going to work harder, all those things. So I always had a lot of goals, and I still have a lot of goals. But if you don't know where you are, and if you can't accept I am here, there's this giant cliff between what we have now and where we want to be.
Right.
So I would love to be organized.
Yeah.
But where I am right now to there is a long ways away.
Right.
And I have to accept where I am here first, if that makes sense. So a couple things that I'd written down to help is to think about. Number one is 85% of our thought processes during the day are negative.
Really?
And most of those are shaming.
Wow.
So when we're thinking of why did I do it that way, I'm such a doorknob, why can't I ever remember, all of those things, that's a sign to us that we need to work on our thinking and our shame. That's a shame. And when we do it, we are going to give that to our kids. We're going to pass that on. And so the first step, I think, is we have to be really reflective. That's our first map key.
Okay.
Is reflection. And I see this as the way to help us be engaged with our families and with our life. Okay. Is reflection. Okay. So how do you define reflection?
Reflection, honestly, is I try to do. I'm kind of doing this new system with this coach I'm working with, where you take one scenario a day and you just dissect it, and you say okay, is it true? Is it really true? Well, and look at each side of the box. What's the opposite of what happened? Yeah. What's their point of view of what happened? What's your point of view? And what's the desired version of really what the story is? And so when I reflect, I kind of take a scenario that triggers me, whether emotionally, anger, sadness, whatever it is, and just really dissect it from all angles. Yeah.
So taking a step out of yourself and trying to look at it from a different perspective. We used to be told, at least I used to tell my kids this too, is experience. You always learn from your experiences.
Right.
But what I did know is we only learn from reflecting on those experiences.
Okay.
Just because you have an experience doesn't mean you're learning from it.
Right.
And so we have to learn to reflect from it. So when that comes to shame, we have to be willing to go, why am I so icky? Why am I feeling so icky right now?
Right.
Why is this so uncomfortable? Why do I hate it when my kids are crying?
Right.
Why is this driving me up a wall? How come? And really take a step back to be able to take a look. How do our kids and other people see us through their eyes? Like, what do I look like through their eyes?
Right.
What are my face, the annoyed look or the eye rolling or
Right.
all those things. That's why that's why we're so good at hurting each other.
That's totally true. My wife and I are just getting in an argument this week because of just how some of the faces she was making. She's like, "You're not reading my body language." And I was like, "I'm pretty perceptive. I really am reading your body language." And she's like, "You're telling me how I feel." And I'm like, "Your body's telling me how you feel." But then it works both ways.
It does, right. And so that's the second point, which is I'm glad you brought that up.
Nice.
We have to observe without evaluation.
Oh.
That's the painful one.
That's hard.
That's impossible. It's our minds are built to make meaning visually,
Yeah, it's a
right?
protective mechanism,
It
too.
is a protective mechanism. So we have to rise above that and be able to observe our kids, other people, without evaluation. We can only say, remember in circle of security where I'm like, nope, only what you see, hear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
Okay.
that is really difficult too. So when you see your wife and she gives you that look,
Yeah.
that's how do we observe the look and then not evaluate it?
What's the purpose then?
So what is the purpose?
I don't know. What would be the purpose of looking but not learning from it? You know what I mean?
Learning from it is one thing, but if we jump to evaluation too quickly with it, then we respond that way.
Okay.
So if I watch my kid and I'm like, oh, he's just wanting attention or he's just throwing a fit,
Right.
then I can't see his need.
For what it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if we make that evaluation, like with my husband, if he does his eye roll or his
Right.
weird look, if I look at that, then I automatically jump to it. This is what he's thinking.
Right.
This is what he's feeling, instead of just asking him.
Right.
And not getting my own responses all out of whack.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. So run through a scenario in that he does that. You say, "Honey, what's going on?" Or what do you
Yep. Or I can say for kids, I say, you look frustrated.
do? Right.
So it's as simple as acknowledging. I see in your, so like for kids, we do a lot of like, oh, your eyes are all scrunched up and your mouth is down. It looks like you're angry.
Mm-hmm.
Or, you're coming over to me, it looks like you're sad. Or you're, so be able to say, it looks like you're, sometimes that will help. But a lot of times we just need to accept where they are and not add any judgment to it. Just accept it, not change it.
But without evaluating them.
Right.
Just be like, I'm just gonna.
I'm gonna be here.
I
with
see
you.
that. I'm here, but.
Yes. How hard is that?
It feels like it'd be impossible. Like I got this huge mountain to climb now.
No,
Oh.
but that goes back to no shame.
Right.
And accepting.
I'm just thinking of my spouse. I'm like, oh my goodness, what does this even mean?
Yeah. Yep. We have to love unconditionally.
Yeah, that's true.
And when we observe with judgment or with evaluation, trying to figure it out, then we are loving conditionally.
Okay.
Does that make sense? It's going to be a lot to think about.
Yeah, it is going to be a lot to think about. And I know I'm not the only one here. I know like a lot of people look at their kids and they're like, oh, the reason they're not going to bed and they're constantly getting out of bed to ask questions is they want to stay up later.
Yeah.
And they just automatically evaluate versus observing.
Observing, reflecting, taking some time to what is their true need. Maybe they just need you to be with them a minute.
Right. Right.
Maybe it's not the water. Maybe it's not the, everything else.
The billions of owies and that magically appear up at bedtime.
And we tend to want to get people in power struggles. We're good at that because that keeps us connected. So remember, we're hardwired for connection.
Right.
We will do whatever it takes to be connected, whether we admit it or not.
Right.
So people who are like, I don't need anybody, you do.
Right.
And you're doing it one way or another. Whether you're doing it honestly or you're just being a turkey.
Right, or you're being a pain in the butt and everybody recognizes you and makes a big fuss over you.
Right, exactly.
Yep. Okay.
Right. So that's why sometimes we do the victim, like, oh, poor me, everybody hates me. It's, I need attention, but I don't know how to ask for that appropriately. So that is, observation with that evaluation is one of those key steps to knowing where we're at on the map.
That's huge.
It is huge.
Wow.
And it's painful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of work to do.
It is a lot of work. These map skills,
Yeah.
for me, are the key prerequisite to every relationship we have.
Okay.
So if we can build them even a little bit better,
Right.
then we can move our little peg on the map, to
Yeah.
you are here, and now you're here, and then we
Yep.
get to go here. So acceptance does not mean condoning. You can accept like my husband's annoying look,
Right.
I can
Right.
accept that without condoning it.
Okay.
That's a big thing in our culture.
Okay.
I grew up, well, accept it means that it's okay.
Right.
It isn't.
Right.
Acceptance just means you're okay.
Yeah.
You're okay.
I understand
and
that
I'm
you're
gonna
okay.
accept
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't need you to change to fit me,
Right.
which is really hard in our relationships.
Hmm.
I remember, so my husband, I'm the oldest of 6 girls and a
Right.
brother, and my husband's an only child. He grew up in the city playing music and
Yeah.
being a druggy musician. I grew up in the middle of nowhere on a ranch.
Right.
So when we got married, one of my expectations were, if you're not out of bed by 5 in the morning, you've ruined our whole family. So the first time that he slept in till 8 o'clock in the morning, I
Yeah.
thought we were going to have to divorce because that was it. That was it. I had married a lazy man and that was it. And because that's how
Yeah.
I grew up. That was the
Right.
world. That's how we judge people.
Yeah.
We judge people if they were in the field at a certain time. We judge people. It didn't matter if you were getting anything done, but you were out there.
Yeah.
Then
It was
you were worth
expected, and if
something.
you didn't meet
Right.
the expectation,
Right.
something wrong with you.
Exactly. So until I got to the point of accepting my husband for exactly who he is,
Yep.
I couldn't love him
Hmm.
the way that he deserves to be loved.
Right.
Because acceptance and love have to be unconditional.
Oh yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
so that is one of those keys. And then realizing acceptance is not condoning. I'm still going to say, I don't like it when you treat me this way, or
Right.
I'm angry that you did this.
Right.
That's a separate issue. And we put those all in one giant lump.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Does it?
See, we can say to somebody, I don't like the way you're treating me,
Mm-hmm.
and hold people accountable because I believe in that.
Right.
But we have to accept them as well.
Right. So like with kids, it could be, if they have a temper tantrum, you ask
Right.
them to do something, they throw a big fit,
Right.
and even if they try hitting or screaming, you can be like, hey, this is not acceptable.
Right, this is not okay. I can see you're angry.
Right.
You can be angry, but you're not going to hit me.
Right. Yeah.
those are two separate things. However, have you ever gotten in a power struggle with a 4-year-old?
It's the losing battle.
It is.
Yeah, it's a daily power battle every day.
But do you
Have
ever-
you ever? Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
yeah. I will watch myself at the end of a day with the kid. I'm like, oh my gosh, he just kicked my butt.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
because he just had me going round and round and
Uh-huh.
round, and he won. So,
And they have endurance.
oh yeah.
Yeah, they have
Yeah.
way more endurance than I do.
Yeah. My boys they still, when they get together, they laugh about all the ways that they could get us going. We'd be crying and mad and fighting,
Oh,
and they'd be
yeah.
all off the hook.
Yeah.
So, it's crazy.
They know how to
do
play
that.
us like violins.
Oh, they do. They
Yep.
do. And then another thing that helps us be where we are and be enough is forgiveness.
Right.
And that's unconditional too.
Hmm.
We offer forgiveness to our spouses and our kids. And I don't think we think very much about forgiving our children. And that's a huge piece to a healthy family.
Okay.
It's showing them that I can mess up and I can forgive you and I can repair this relationship.
Right.
And I think sometimes as parents we get into the shame of I shouldn't be mad at my kids. I shouldn't be hurt. I shouldn't be this. I
Right.
shouldn't be that. I shouldn't be embarrassed. All these things that we forget to forgive them. And we hold grudges.
Right.
And we do punish them
We do.
based on that.
Mm-hmm.
So forgiveness has to be unconditional. And then the last map, there's 2 more. Empathy, feeling, trying to put ourselves in their shoes.
Okay.
Feeling into what they feel. So, yeah, we might not understand why they're throwing a fit because their necklace broke,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
But for them, it's a really big deal. So
Yeah.
trying to understand empathy. And then curiosity is my final one. I think I'm most concerned about our families and our kids and our world because it seems like we're becoming less engaged in our life.
Yeah.
Like kids used to want to touch and feel everything and now they'll just look at it, and I want us to build curiosity. Like how do I know your story if I'm not curious? If I don't want to know you or know about you or know who you are as a person, how will I ever get to know you?
Yeah.
If I don't notice things, how will I see, how will I observe, how will I have empathy? Right. All of these things I think curiosity fuels.
Right.
And for me, that's a huge deal when it comes to knowing where we are and knowing why we're still here.
Right.
Is curiosity. And
these are huge.
Yeah, so those are the main parts.
I love
the
it.
thing that makes this really hard is that it makes us vulnerable.
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, these things are all designed. The facts of what we've been doing are all designed to protect us.
Yes.
But now we're trying to give those up unconditionally. Yeah. Oh man, that's scary.
It is scary.
Yeah.
It is very scary to be vulnerable.
Well, folks, unfortunately, that's all of the episode that I have recorded. Really, we were just going to ask her what her final message was and how to get a hold of her. Again, make sure you check out her Facebook page. That's titled Enough, and you can find that right on Facebook. Just make sure you give that a search, or click on the show notes. I'll put a direct message on there. But until next time, this is Dr. Nick Fanning signing off with the Super Parent Podcast. Thanks so much for joining.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Super Parent Syndrome. Please be sure to visit peptalksforparents.com for more content and our free newsletter. And remember, you are not alone.